Hey everybody, Bonehead for the Bonehead podcast, and welcome to Print to Pitch. This is our series where we have a look at everything 3D printed for Blood Bowl, whether it's teams, star players, big guys, accessories, or stuff that has nothing to do with Blood Bowl, but we think we can fit into Blood Bowl. We cover and have a look at everything. Now, it is the beginning of the month, therefore it is Patreon time again. And this month, we've got another very cool team from our friends at Torchlight. We've seen High Elves be completely abandoned by Blood Bowl. We've seen them come back in Blood Bowl 2020 as one of the most competitive teams, but they're still teams of legend. And now we're seeing some great High Elf teams. And what we're going to do today is we're going to have a look at the upcoming Patreon release. I've forgotten the name of the team, but it's the Torchlight High Elves. Okay, so the team is called the Silver Shards. I forgot that basically. And it is going to be dropping in the next few days from Torchlight. And it is a High Elf team. So we've got blitzers, we've got throwers, we've got catchers. Now, not all of the team, I think, has been spoiled at this point. So we get a bit of a scoop, which is quite exciting. It's Torchlight. Okay, so they're going to be really well sculpted, some great detail, really well pre-supported. Now, we've got all the files, so we're going to boot up Chittybox in a minute and have a look at the STLs, and then, obviously, we'll have a look at some of the prints as well. Okay, so the first thing we're going to start with is the two blitzers. Now, they're not really small. I'm just using the Saturn II build plate, as my Saturn II is now here, and the build plate is ridiculous. And so is the detail on these models. So these are the first two High Elves. These are the blitzers, Blitzer 1 and Blitzer 2. Let's press Control A and see if we can look at some of the detail. Okay, so the first two things that flag out here are, one, the insane level of detail on the armor. It's beautiful. So I'm really lazy when it comes to painting. So the fact that I can probably prime these guys brown and just chuck gold paint on there with a Seraphim Sepia wash and have it done and just looking pristine and gleamy is absolutely wonderful. That level of detail is brilliant, and to be fair, most printers won't have a problem doing it, because even though there's a ton of detail, it's not so intricate that it's going to cause you problems when supporting it or anything like that, which is brilliant. You've got the classic High Elf vibe here, where they've kind of got the mini skirts, I guess, normally with some armor. These guys don't, but they do have those thick stripes around the bottom, which are really good for picking out with team colors. You've got the tabards in the middle as well, and then I guess you've got a couple of the archetypical pieces of Torchlight sculpting here. One is that the hands are always a little bit big. The hands and feet and heads are always slightly exaggerated when it comes to the Torchlight miniatures, which is a great design. It really strikes me of like the 3rd edition stuff, the 5th and 6th edition Warhammer. I don't find it offensive. It's a cool little style. Now, the faces are very detailed, and Torchlight have gone for kind of like this exaggerated, stern, haughty, High Elf kind of vibe, where they've got these kind of cleft. It's like you kind of imagine a 60s and 70s movie star, and they've just gone, yeah, turn it up to 11, because that's what we want High Elves to be. And you'll see this across all of the players. Their faces are really characterful. There's a ton of detail in there, even though this guy's eyes are kind of dead and terrifying. But that, again, can be pretty High Elf if you're looking at it from a Warhammer 6th edition point of view. I really like this. And this was the first model that was previewed. And I kind of thought, all right, this is an interesting design. And then they went and dropped the rest of the team, and it fits with the High Elf scheme so much. You've got the stars, you've got the gems, you've got the intricate armor. I love it. I think it's so good. So that's the blitzers. Let's have a look at the throwers. Okay, so I've printed this team twice in 2 different scales, and as I'm looking at them, I'm starting to really like them. Okay, so you've got 2 throwers here. Again, they've got all that intricate kind of it was kind of royal house wall detail on their armor. Probably better described as fine filigree, but I like the fact that they kind of reminds me of like posh people's tiling on their ceilings and stuff. Okay, good. Had to check we didn't have too much Artex on our ceiling. Look, you've got 2 throwers here with good throwing poses. The interesting thing here is both the throwing arms, no armor. So the throwers are going to be easy to identify as being the least armored players until we look at the catchers. they've got their head armor, they've got the helmet of the blitzer, so it ties in nicely with the rest of the team. You've got the loincloth bit, you've got the armored greaves, you've got the high elf miniskirt, which is going to offend every high elf player out there. You've got the silver helmet, and you've got this brilliant armor, but because they're missing the shoulder pads and they're holding the ball, you're going to be pretty easy to identify them as throwers. Let's zoom out. Okay, this is the cool thing about playing with Chizzy Boxes. You can zoom out and be like, right, how is my player going to stand out on the pitch? And actually, you can easily identify this guy in the middle. Both of them as throwers because they're both holding the ball. But this one here, who is... I've pressed Control All. Cancel that, please. And click U. Thrower 1 is the proper thrower pose and absolutely looks like he's leading his team. Okay, so we've got the catchers here. Now, I've just imported them onto the plate. And we got some serious, like, NFL highlights kind of posing there by the end guy. We'll flatten him out in a second. So we've looked at 2 blitzers, we've looked at 2 throwers, we get 4 catchers with this team as well. And I love the catchers, which is brilliant because actually when it comes to being high elves, the blitzers are great, the linemen are great, the throwers are great, the catchers are kind of where it starts to come together. They're not as good as the Elven Union catchers, but they've still got a motor at being strength 3 and movement 8. I love this. You got 2 really like solid, grounded in the motion, right? They're catching on the run. That guy is, this one here is positioned, and again you've got great posing, great armor, a load of dynamism, and you've got that kind of, like I said, rugged movie star face where you've got the cheekbones sticking out. You've got a real ton of detail when it comes to the face work. It's going to paint up really nicely, which is something that I'm really keen. Now, in fact, Ian Warhammer Hannam was like, well, next time you print a team, can you print me a spare guy? Because I want to do I just want to paint something different. Ian, you're getting a high elf. You don't know this yet, but you're getting a high elf. So you've got 2 guys catching on the run. You've got this one here who's ready, kind of signaling that he's open. And then you've got this NFL highlight pose. Now, I'll admit, you should probably print him so that his feet are on the ground, but that does mean, so let's cancel this, grab this guy, drag him over, and then we'll just kind of straighten him out a bit so that he's not flying through the air, although I do quite like it. There you go. Actually, this guy posed like this, outstretched, getting that big catch in. Elven catchers, in fact, most catcher players kind of end up with this throwing themselves up into the air to grab a catch. It's really dynamic, and actually we get a really good look at like the elven ears and the facial structure. There's a ton of detail on this player. Now, I really love these guys. Like this one here is probably one of my favorite ones in the set. It's just got such a natural pose and it works brilliantly. So 4 catchers done. Let's move on to the linemen. Okay, so the team comes with 6 high elf linemen as well, and they're all brilliant. We've got some really cool poses. So linemen are your bog standard dudes, right? They're going to be there on the line to do lineman things. They're also elves, so they're movement 6, they're Ag 2+, they can do great things. They're high elves though, and every one of these guys is resplendent in their armor, and they have got that classic high elf look. Like, they've got the wings on the side of their helmets. They're well armored for linemen. They're not quite as impressive looking as the blitzers, but they are so close because they're high elves, because this is what they do. Now, when Games Workshop redo this team, they are going to be hard pressed to match some of the design features that we're seeing from these high elf teams. This guy himself looks brilliant, could be a statue, could be a star player. This guy, again, you've got a great pose, great work on the face, great work on the armor. This guy too is actually in motion, blitzing. It's really well done, and actually Torchlight have done some good work on some unusual posing as well. So this dude here is actually flying through the air and stomping on somebody, which is something that high elf linemen might do every now and again if they really need to. And we've got another guy here who's posed ready on the line, which I really like, and this one here is properly running for it. So with this kit you get 6 linemen, and 1, 2, 3 of them are in semi-static poses. One of them is at a gentle blitz rate, and then you've got 2 that are really dynamic, a full-on run and a stomping. So if you want 4 guys who are not that who are more static than others, you can do that. You can flip them as well. You can mirror them, so you kind of got twice the, of course, mirror them the right axis. You got twice the player type, right? So you can actually just play with it and duplicate a guy, and then have 2 different versions of him. It's a really cool and easy way to do it. So we'll mirror on the y-axis. No, did that twice now. On the x-axis. There you go. You got 2 guys. So you get the flexibility here to print a load of dynamic linemen or a load of kind of static on the linemen. And that's actually a really useful flexibility when it comes to building and printing your team. Now, we'll have a quick look at a pre-supported version. We're not going to go into too much detail because they print just right. Okay, so grabbed 2 models just to have a quick look at their pre-supports, and it's really well done. So they are printed vertically, but actually I had no difficulties with layer lines. I had no difficulties pulling the supports off. Now you've got to be careful sometimes if you've got outstretched hands, outstretched thumbs and things like that. The Punga ones for this month, I had a couple of feet break off because I wasn't paying attention. So you've got to be really careful when you take the supports off. But actually the Torchlight ones have been done really well. And actually if you just kind of put pressure on, lean it one way or a side and start wiggling it, it will all come off. I don't recall having any issues with any of the models taking the supports off, and I didn't have a single fail, and I printed them 100 and 110%. Now, the more you play with the scaling of these pieces, the more you might want to support them yourself, but I printed them on 100 and 110 with their pre-supports, and I didn't have a single issue. Okay, so the team comes with all the positionals. We've had a look at it all, and now let's see if we can't show off some of the detail of the models on our overhead camera. Can we get the focus right? Yes, we can. So these guys are printed on my Mars 2 Pro with standard settings. I think they're all printed on my Mars 2 Pro. Some of them might have been printed on the Saturn, but hey, same settings, same resin, basically the same kind of output, just a bigger footprint. Let's see if we can get a little bit of a better shot. Can we do that? I'm still trying to figure out how this autofocus works. No. Okay, so I'll have to leave them down there. That's fine. Right. Like I said, we've got a series of models. So this is one of the blitzers, and I think we've got the second blitzer there. So you can see that actually all the details come out really, really nicely with the print, and these are 100% scale. So these are both the blitzers. Now, you may be thinking, as we were looking at the files, are the blitzers kind of, well, this guy obviously stands out, but this blitzer is posed very similarly to one of the linemen. So I thought it would be useful to grab one of the linemen. Have we got a lineman? And kind of show how similar it is. You can see that this guy is bigger, right? His shoulder pads are bigger and wider. So I don't think you're going to have to worry too much about separating them, which is really cool. Now, as for detail, there is plenty on the model, and I don't know what else to say. Like, they've printed out and they look exactly like the STLs. The pre-supports are brilliant. You can't even see much damage to the back of them, which is really nice. I'm a big fan of that. So we've got the blitzer, and we're going to do a size comparison to a wood elf. That's not a wood elf. Not at all. Where's my wood elf gone? There we go. He was the other side of my cup of tea, but we'll use the human in a minute anyway. So we've got the wood elf lineman here, who is going to be our elf representative. And as you line up the high elf against him, you can see that the high elf is actually a little bit taller, and even though he's got the vibe of being a little bit slight, he's actually bigger than the wood elf. Now, I made a grievous mistake here. I printed them out first of all and then thought, they look a bit small. I'll go print them all again at 110% scale, and it was not necessary. So this is 110%, this is 100%, and actually if we bring that wood elf back in again, you can see just how not necessary printing it out at 100% is. The guy is flipping massive. It's just not needed. Maybe if it was strength 4, okay, that'd be fine. And again, 110% against the human, just wrong. So waste of resin that, because actually 100% is bang on the money. Really impressed with the size. They're taller than humans, right? They're taller, but they don't feel massive. if you compare them to some of the other players, we got some Khorne guys. Yeah, we do. You know what we do. We have a Torchlight Khorne player here, and actually the Khorne player's got more mass, but the high elf is taller and has got just that regalness about him. So 100% is just fine. You don't need to worry about scaling them up, which is really nice. I think what I did was comparing them against the Dark Elf Blitzer, and I kind of thought, well, they're about head height, and this guy's running and kind of in a pose, and actually if you put this guy next to him, how does it figure out? And he's a little bit, should be probably a little bit taller. That is what I did, and that is why I ended up printing a team out at 110% scale. So if you want your team to be a bit bigger than Wood Elves, 100% is fine. 105% would probably put them halfway between Dark Elves and Wood Elves. So if you are going to scale up, 105, but you really don't need to, 100% is good to go. So the Blitzer is a great model, comes out really nicely, and we've got, is this a catcher or is this one of the linemen? I think this is an lineman actually. And again, you can see all the great details come out on the lineman. I do really like this team. I wasn't in the market for a high elf team even slightly, but actually we're a bit spoiled at the moment for high elf teams, and it's really nice. So similar pose to the Dark Elf, and actually if we put them neck and neck size wise, they are about right. And again, this is 100% scale. I think I printed this guy off at I did at 110%, and you can see that actually he is a bit too big. Oh, come on, autofocus, you can do it. A little bit more, there you go. You can see that actually it's a bit bigger than it needs to be, so 105 is probably the sweet spot, but you don't need to worry about it too much. 100 will be just great. And we got the thrower here as well, so we can check him out. Now, I was a bit worried that the arm without the shoulder pad would look a bit small, and I kind of get that vibe, but I'm not too worried about it, because actually he is going to be on his base on the pitch, and he's going to be able to really stand out and be that thrower. There you go. As we move around, you can see how smooth the print has come out, and the support work, which is just their pre-supports, really good. There's nothing to worry about, which is just absolute bliss. And the more I do of this show, the more it kind of flags up just how useful that is. So obviously I did my first few prints and then thought that they needed to be bigger, so the other ones we're going to look at are 110% scale, but I don't think that matters too much. So this was the Super Dynamic Catcher Man, and I believe you can glue him like this, so that he is on his base and kind of flying through the air, making a catch, which is brilliant. You don't have to use him because some of the other catchers are just brilliant as well. So we've got this guy here, who's the one of the ones that's just in motion, ready to catch just mid-stride, which is just such a satisfying thing if you're an LFL fan. But, well, to be fair, as an elf fan as well. Yeah, this is a very elfy kind of thing to do. Now, the catchers, they've got good amounts of armor on these models. They don't look as light as perhaps you would want them to, but they don't have the helmet, which is going to make them stand out. So the catchers, apart from our very noble Blitzer, are the only players that don't have the helmets. So they're going to stand out nicely, and to be fair, their really dynamic pose works beautifully. Now, I love this too. Like, they've got some really great posing. This guy is full on Dragon Ball Z running, and I think that's awesome. And the last one we look at is this Fouling Elf. I think it's brilliant. You've got this one added to it, printed out lovely, loads of dynamism. I'm not a huge fan of flat bits where they join the base, because actually it messes up the basing sometimes. But what it will do is glue nicely, stick to the base, and give you a pretty secure bond. There you have it, the Torchlight Silver Shards. This is going to be on their Patreon this month, so if you're watching it, go sign up and get an entire fully supported and fully animated High Elf team. It will be available on their My Mini Factory afterwards. I'm not sure how much, because we haven't got to that point yet. But I can say if you're in the market for a high elf team, there's a fair few to choose from, and if this is the one you choose, I don't think you'll regret it. I've been really impressed with the sculpts. They are a little bit on the cartoony side, but the detail and the movement captured in them is just really, really, really good. So big thumbs up here, and hey, it's Torchlight. Can't wait to see what they're trying to do next month, because every month has been so good. Anyway, I'm going to wrap up. Let me know what you think of this team in the comments, and we'll be back soon with more Blood Bowl content. Happy catching. Thanks very much for watching. We really appreciate your support. If you want to help support the channel even further, please like and subscribe, or come join us on our Patreon. We have early access to content. We get loads of feedback from you guys, and we try and do competitions as much as we can. Or you can get yourself some Bonehead podcast merch on our Spreadshirt site. So if you want to support a team, especially for the Bonehead Championship, you can pick up a shirt, a mug, things like that. It all helps support the channel, and we really appreciate it. Anyway, links below. Thank you very much. Happy blocking.